You were in a relationship and you were lonely, not because you were alone, because the person beside you was never really there, not fully, not in the way you needed, not in the way you had quietly hoped they would one day become. You had a partner. You had someone who slept in your bed and sat across from you at dinner and called you when they landed safely. And still, there was this ache, this low, persistent ache that lived somewhere just beneath the surface of everything. And you could never quite explain it. Because how do you tell someone you are lonely when you are not alone? How do you name a grief that does not have a clean story attached to it? No betrayal, no dramatic ending, no single moment you can point to and say, that is when it broke. It was not one thing. It was 1,000 small absences, 1,000 moments where you reached and the hand was not quite there, 1,000 conversations that stayed on the surface, no matter how hard you tried to go deeper, 1,000 nights where you lay beside them and felt far away. That is what brings you here today. And if you have never had a name for it, you are about to. There is a particular kind of loneliness that only exists inside a relationship. Psychologists sometimes call it emotional unavailability, but that phrase is so clinical, so cold. It does not capture what it actually feels like to love someone who cannot meet you where you are. What it actually feels like is this: you are standing at a door and you knock and they answer, but they only ever open it halfway. And you spend years trying to figure out how to make them open it all the way. You change how you knock. You change what you say when they answer. You change yourself quietly, slowly, in ways you do not even notice, trying to become someone they will finally let all the way in. And some days it almost works. Some days they are warm and present and soft, and you think, there it is. That is what I knew was in there. That is the person I fell in love with. And then the door closes again, and you are back outside, wondering what you did, wondering what changed, wondering if you imagined it. You did not imagine it. It was real. They were capable of it. They just could not sustain it. And that is one of the most painful things a person can experience in a relationship. Not cruelty, not the absence of love entirely, but the presence of just enough to keep you hoping. Let's talk about how this happens. Because you did not walk into this relationship blind, you are not naive. You are not foolish. You are not someone who ignores red flags. What happened was more subtle than that. In the beginning, they were present, or at least they were present enough. There was chemistry, there was attention, there was the intoxicating feeling of being chosen by someone you genuinely wanted to be chosen by. And somewhere in those early months, you caught glimpses of depth, moments of real vulnerability, moments where they let you in, moments that felt like, this person is capable of the kind of love I am looking for. And you were not wrong about that. They were capable of it. In flashes, what you could not have known then was that those flashes were as deep as it went, that the vulnerability had a ceiling, that the closeness had a limit, that you would spend the rest of the relationship chasing the version of them you met in those early moments, and they would spend the rest of it slowly retreating from a closeness that felt to them like too much. This is not about fault. This is about fit. This is about two people with different capacities for intimacy, trying to build something together that required the same amount from both of them. And one of them kept showing up with everything. And one of them kept offering what they had, which was real, but it was not enough. And deep down, even when you could not say it out loud, you knew, can we talk about the adjusting? Because that is the part nobody names. The adjusting is what happens when you love someone who cannot fully meet you. You stop asking for the conversations that go nowhere and leave you feeling worse. You stop reaching for them in the ways that used to result in the door closing. You find other places to put your needs, a friend who really listens, a journal, a version of yourself that got very good at being self-sufficient. And from the outside, this looks like a functioning relationship. You stopped fighting. You stopped pushing. Things were calm. But calm and connected are not the same thing. And somewhere along the way, you stopped knowing the difference. You called it growth. You called it maturity. You called it not needing so much. But what it actually was grief that had gone quiet. You had grieved the relationship you wanted and made peace with the relationship you had. And you called that love. It was love. It just was not the love you deserved. Here is what makes this kind of relationship so hard to leave and so hard to explain after you do. There was nothing dramatic to point to. They did not hurt you in ways that are easy to name. They were not cruel. They were not absent in ways anyone else could see. They showed up for birthdays. They handled logistics. They were, by most measures, a decent partner. So when it ends, or when you finally admit to yourself that something has been wrong for a long time, the grief is complicated because you miss them. But what you miss is not quite them. What you miss is the version of them you always believed was just around the corner, the one who would finally open all the way, the one who would finally see you, the one who was always almost there. You are grieving a person who never fully existed, and that is a particular kind of loss that the world does not have good rituals for. There is no casserole for this, no sympathy card, no clear moment of mourning, just a quiet, ongoing ache for something that was almost real, and the slow, disorienting work of figuring out who you are. When you stop waiting for someone to finally show up for you, this is the part I need you to hear. The years you spent loving someone who could not fully love you back, those years were not wasted. I know it can feel that way. I know there are moments when you count up the time and feel something cold move through you. But here is what those years gave you. They gave you an intimate understanding of your own capacity for love. You loved through uncertainty. You loved through disappointment. You loved through the quiet grief of 1,000 small absences. And you kept loving. That is not weakness. That is one of the rarest things a human being can do. What you now get to do. And this is the gift that lives on the other side of this, is take that same capacity and direct it somewhere worthy of it, towards someone who does not need you to adjust, someone who does not require you to make yourself smaller, someone for whom your full presence is not too much, but exactly enough. You are not too much. You have never been too much. You were simply with someone who did not have enough room for all of you, and that is about their capacity, not your worth. Before I close, I want to say something to the woman who is still in it, the one who is still adjusting, still hoping, still telling herself that maybe this time the door will open all the way. I am not here to tell you what to do. Only you know what is true in your relationship. Only you know what you have tried and what has been tried for you. What I am here to tell you is this: the ache you feel is real. The loneliness you feel inside the relationship is real, and you are allowed to take it seriously. You do not have to wait for something dramatic to happen before you are allowed to say, "This is not enough for me." Needing to feel truly seen by the person you love is not asking for too much. It is asking for the minimum, and you deserve more than the minimum. You deserve someone who is fully present, fully there, fully yours, not halfway, not in flashes, all the way. You deserve all the way. If this reached you today, if these words named something you have been carrying quietly for a long time, you are not alone in this. Leave A in the comments. Share this with a woman you know who is loving someone who is only ever halfway there. And if this channel has been a place of comfort for you, subscribe. New videos every week. This is Mama Amelia, and I will see you next time.